been raining for about 24 hours straight here, and this morning we decided to challenge ourselves by making match fires. The children were really the people who, the ones who fought for the challenge. We had posed the question to them and they seemed really excited about it. So we've been working on it for about an hour and 15 minutes, and the children are still struggling. They've gotten fire a couple times. For the first half hour they weren't allowed to use any birch bark or knives, and then we allowed them to use birch bark. And they've gotten some flames going with the birch bark, but nothing sustainable yet. The instructors didn't allow themselves to use birch bark for
making fire, teaching people how to make fire, yet we didn't have fire for over an hour. The conditions are quite wet today. Today is a difficult day for fire. We told all of you yesterday that today would be a difficult day for fire. Did you hear any of us in our group talking to each other the way that people were talking to each other in your group? I mean, if a match went out, I didn't look at Tony or Paula or Mike or say, "Oh, come on, what are you doing? Oh, geez, why'd that go up? Come on, you've got to turn it up more. Go get stuff." We didn't do that. We didn't do that. One of us didn't sit down and order the others what to do. What did we do? Let's have someone else share. What else did we do? Oliver, what did we do?
You all work together.
And that's the difference.
So for folks who have been watching these videos, this game will look familiar. It's often called camouflage. We call it wolves and deer. We played it yesterday on Monday, the first day of this camp. A lot of the kids remember it from yesterday, but many of them remember it from last year. And what they did last year was that every day after lunch, we usually give them about 15 to 25 minutes of unstructured time where they can just choose to do whatever they want. And about 95% of the time, children will come here and just start playing deer and wolves. It just happens naturally. Somebody announces, "Hey, let's play deer and wolves," and everybody says, "Yeah, let's play." And then they just start up playing, and we just let them play. It's not that we even really suggest it to them, and they seem to enjoy it. It also causes them to kind of work together to make the game work.
She's the secret ninja.
Okay, moths in the circle.
Not gonna trip.
And let's do one more practice round.
Okay.
Wait, that's practice. I still hear some people, or I don't hear people saying flutter. Please say flutter. If I see you not saying flutter, you're going to be called out.
Are we allowed to move around the circle?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you got to try to dodge Chloe.
So it's kind of like Marco Polo?
It's a lot like Marco Polo. Ready, set, begin.
Sweet flutter! No. Sweet flutter! Sweet flutter!
If you step out of bounds, like Oliver just did, you're out.
I'm still in it.
You're going to have to go out, gather all of those plants, and then come back and show us that you've got them. You will only have 30 seconds to look at the plants. So in that 30 seconds, you don't get to walk away from the table and start to gather. You need the 30 seconds to look at them, to try to identify them. This time we're being rather tricky with it. You have some that are very similar in terms of physical characteristics. So it will throw you off, and I already said you're doing it in 2 teams.
Oh.
So you're going to have a group of partners, technically speaking, right? Does this make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
The difference with this versus what we did last week was that we used plants from the landscape, as you'll be able to see, and several of them we kept the tubers or the roots to them so that way they could see the edible properties. We picked 5 fairly common plants. In this case we picked 3 that all had a compound leaf shape so that way they can start to differentiate plants that have similar growth characteristics. So we really want them to start to tune into identifying plants at this point, possibly getting into some of the edible properties of them as well. This is a really good South energy game. In terms of intense focus when you're looking at the table. With all of the movement going out in the landscape, it turns into pretty good east energy as well. And we end up using a lot of west because they have to talk with each other. So that community building is all part of it. So all of the time when we're doing this game, we're thinking of our 4-direction model.
different. There are thousands of plants out there. We're just focusing on a few common ones around here. Some of them have edible value, some of them have medicinal value. But right now, this is just getting them to pattern on the fact that there are different plants out there and their brains to be patterned on that fact.
Yeah, you need
Very good, Samantha. That's the one you guys don't have, that they have, assuming that they're even right about what's under the blanket.
I knew that there was one with teeth and one that didn't have like as many teeth.
By the way,
No, that's so different.
Is that poison ivy?
we're going to give you, I'll say 30 seconds to check it, okay?
You have to talk?
Yeah, you can talk.
That's
This one we have. This one isn't
right.
This one we have. Oh, that's the one. This one, yeah,
doesn't
have
have
this
as
many teeth. We have this one. We didn't have that one.
We
have maple. This one is. Wait, I'm missing it. That's not it.
Alright, we got that one.
That one. This one.
That's right.
This
No,
one.
that's right.
We need one of these. Guys, we need this instead of
that's not it. These are too sharp.
So we don't. We're not using that. Really sharp edges.
All right, time.
Really sharp edges.
So no, none of you guys got this one?
Yeah, we all got
okay,
that
cool.
one.
We all got it.
So,
What is it?
I got their attention. So how'd you guys know this one from this one?
Yellow dots.
Yellow spots. Yellow spots are not
More
always...
teeth.
Right, the teeth is what I want you to key in on. The yellow spots are not always going to be there. Does anybody know the name of this one?
And then
So where are we at?
The Hill of the Fallen Giants.
Hill of the Fallen Giants. And on the way up to the Hill of the Fallen Giants, what are we going to come across?
The spongy grass.
Okay, and then what happens after the Hill of the Fallen Giants?
The giants.
The
half-arched tree.
Half art.
Half-arched tree.
And then once you go a little bit forward to
Between
your
the
right,
X Bridge and the Elf.
is the
and
Mossy Elf
Bridge.
Bridge.
Then
There's going to be the stream. What happens after we cross the stream? What are we looking for?
the Termite Hotel and the Dragon's Eye.
Okay, and then what?
Then
The hill of the dead Hemlock brothers.
And then in the distance you can see the half-naked spear.
And where's Uncle Yeti going to be?
At the hill of the dead Hemlock brothers.
This?
Rocky teardrops. Coming up right here's the rocky teardrop.
the rocky teardrop. And then the dragon's eye.
Here. Where are the Fallen Giants? What's that? Where is it?
The moth dragons. The X Bridge.
The X Bridge? There's the X Bridge.
The X Bridge is it's 2 miles from the big
There's the wood.
the Termite Village. Termite Hotel.
Where's the Dragon's Eye?
Right over there. You can't really see the eagle. This is the Termite Hotel. And then that's the Dragon's Eye. Riley's head is in the eye. They are right there.
You folks did a nice job finding it. How many of you see this as being something useful if you go out into the woods and want to be able to find a specific spot again? Or give someone directions as to how to find you? The important part with giving someone directions as to how to find you, and each of you is going to try this tomorrow, you're each going to go out from the horseshoe-shaped lawn, and you're going to have to walk a trail, and you're going to create a storyline, and then you're going to tell it to someone, and they're going to have to find the same items you were talking about and follow the same walk that you had. Do you guys understand that? The day that first man came to be, he was quite confused. He walked around, and he looked at things, and he wondered about how they worked, and what they meant, and what the heck he was supposed to be doing there. But he had no one to talk to about it, because he was first man. And so he would just kind of walk and be like, well, that's kind of pretty, but I don't know what it's for. Okay. And so he'd move on. And in his walking, about halfway through his first day, he ran into Moushop. Now, Moushop was the creator of all of these good things on this earth. And so First Man comes up to him and says, "Hi! Do you know who I am?" Moushop smiles like, "Ah, yes, First Man. I do know who you are. I've been waiting for you to come around and find me today." And so he says, "Great. What am I supposed to be doing here?" And First Man says, "You know, I'd really love to help you right now. But I am in the middle of perfecting this butterfly wing, and I simply don't have time to talk. So, I need you to go and talk to your grandmother." Grandmother? I have a grandmother? And he was absolutely filled with love for his grandmother, because that's what everyone does. They absolutely have their hearts filled with love for their grandmothers, even though he didn't know what a grandmother was. He knew from the moment he heard the word grandmother that he loved her. So, he says, "Great, I'll go ask grandmother. How do I find grandmother?" And Moushop says, "She lives right down this hill. Across the river, you'll find a lodge." And he goes, "Awesome!" And he goes to run off, and then he turns back around, he says, "Oh yeah, what's a river?" Moushop smiles and goes, "You just go down this hill, and you will find it." He says, "Okay." So, he was very excited to see grandmother, so he goes running down this hill, and when he gets to the bottom, he sees blue in front of him, and thinks, "Hey, this will be just like the other stuff I'm running on." But water doesn't work that way, my friends. And First Man ran right out onto it and sunk promptly down to the bottom and got himself spit back out by the river a little bit upshore. He goes, "That is funky stuff back there. Well, there must be some way to get across." So he's looking. And he sees all of this harder dirt stuff, which looked different from the water stuff. And so he said, "Yeah, maybe if I start bringing dirt into the water, I can go across it." So he'd walk with these big handfuls of dirt, and he'd throw them in, but the water would just wash it down, and none of it would collect. And he'd say, something bigger, something bigger. And he turns around and he sees these really big rocks behind him, and so he goes up the hill a little bit, and he starts grabbing these big rocks, and he rolls them into the river. And he thought that would work for sure, except for once they rolled too far, they just kept sinking down so he couldn't see them. He sits down for a second. He goes, "Well, this is frustrating. I really want to see my grandmother, whatever that is, over there across this river." So he thinks, and as he's sitting there thinking, he sees that some things are on the bottom of the water, and then he sees some things, like leaves and twigs, are on the top of the water. He says, I need to find something to help me stay on top of the water, but I don't know what that is. So he sits and he thinks some more. And he thinks some more. He's pretty good at thinking for being First Man. And as he's waiting, he sees a stick floating down the river with a branch coming up from it, and on that was a bird just taking a ride down the river. And he goes, "Now that's an idea. I'm going to ride on a stick across the river." So he runs up the hill and he rips down a log. And he drags it down into the river, and he plops it in, and he sits on it, and then sinks right to the bottom. Well, that wasn't very effective. I know. More stick. So he runs back up the hill, and he gets a second log, and he lays it down next to the first one, and he sits on top of it, and then right down to the bottom again. But he felt a little bit of pushing up toward him this time, so he knew something was working. So he said, 3, lots more sticks. So he starts running up the hill, and he's just grabbing logs, and he puts them all side by side. So he's got like 6 or 7 logs, and he pushes them all in, and then he kind of sits on them, and he gets himself going. But then what do you think happened to all the logs?
They went down.
Yeah, they all start floating apart away from him. So he's scrambling and trying to get them, and he falls through them, and he's... Okay. That would have floated me, but I have to attach them somehow. So he turns and he looks behind him and he sees some vines hanging off a couple trees there near the water. And so he's like, "Oh, okay." So he goes and he starts pulling some of these down, and he starts looping them over. And he attaches all of these logs to make himself a little raft, and then he very carefully sits on it and scoots, and sits on it and scoots, and it floats, and he goes, oh, this is it, this is it. So he runs back in, gets a long stick, and he starts pushing himself across the river. And he gets to the other side. So he was very happy about that. When he got there, he looked, and he didn't have to look very far, and he saw something he didn't see before, which was a building. And he said, maybe grandmother is over there. So he runs over, and he goes to knock on the door, and before his hand even hits, the door opens up. His grandmother is standing there at the door and says, grandson, welcome, come in, have some corn soup, tell me about your day. And so he comes in, and he sits down, he says, grandmother, I've done so much today. And he tells him about finding Mouse Shop and working on the wing and all the different new things he saw, and that he had this really hard time figuring out how to come and see her, but it eventually worked out because he figured out how to get the logs and put them together, and now he was there with her. And then he said, but grandmother, I came to you for a reason. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Can you help me figure that out? And she smiled and she said, and so today was your first lesson. And it was this. Your heart told you to come and see me, to find out about what it is that you needed to do. But your mind helped you figure out how to go about what your heart told you to do. And this is how your life is supposed to be. You are always supposed to follow the direction of your heart and use your mind to help you figure out how to do what it is your heart is leading you to do. It's never the other way around. You don't try to convince your heart to do what your mind is telling you to do. It's that your mind helps to bring you to what your heart's desire is. And it's because the mind is filled with wonderful thinking and logic. But the heart speaks the language of the Creator with ways of love and beauty. Aho?
Oh.